sure looks like a gin and tonic.
It's not, unfortunately. It's not quite that late yet.
First week we covered an overview. Last week we talked about where the products start for those people you see thriving. It starts with the person that starts the business, a problem they experience themselves in a field they love. From there, they figure out what the solution to the problem is. They go out and they try to buy it. They go to the retail stores that they believe would be selling their idea. They walk in and they try to buy it. That process of trying to buy it, they take a half dozen trips to a half dozen stores to get to the point, milestone number 2. Milestone number 1 being, hey, why don't they just, that is to come up with a solution to a problem that you experience in a field you love. Milestone number 2 is going to those retailers that you think would buy such a thing from you, getting them to the point where they say, that's a good idea, but it doesn't exist, which becomes your permission to go out and start a business. Okay? Then you're going to go through the process that we're going to look at tonight, and that is finding the best place in the world to have the product made. This is where you better have a passion for what you're getting involved in, because if you just say, oh, I'm getting involved in t-shirts because you can make a lot of money in t-shirts, you won't do the work necessary to bring the product to market, because you will find problems, you will find challenges as you approach the task at hand, and if you really don't love the product, you don't have a passion for it, you won't do the work necessary. So this is where that passion comes through. Then I went a little farther last week talking about there's all sorts of problems in every field. And maybe don't limit it to, let me change this. If you're finding yourself having a hard time finding, oh, should I do t-shirts or candles or Christmas ornaments or whatever, maybe you're not going high enough or big enough or a tough enough problem. Every field you can think of has problems. The solution usually comes from small businesses. So pick any field that's out there that you love, even if you think it's unapproachable. I say it's wide open. The more unapproachable it is, the more wide open it is. So that's something you're going to reflect upon. And as you go through some sort of field, those terms, think of everything as absolutely wide open. There is a radical nature of small business getting into every sort of problem, stepping into the breach, solving problems, and then those businesses thrive. So that's something to dwell on, reflect upon. So that after that, when you have focused on something and you have gotten to milestone number 2, where retailers have given you permission to start a business by saying that's a good idea, it doesn't exist, then you go through the process of finding the best place in the world to have the product made. Starting that process begins with page 4 of your handouts, with something called the Harmonized Tariff Schedules of the United States. On page 4, this is a page out of the 2002 version. It comes out every year. The Harmonized Tariff Schedules of the United States are harmonized with all the other members of the World Trade Organization. It is a listing of all the numbers the government assigns to anything and everything that can be imported into the United States. To import it, you have to declare what it is. You declare it by its HTS number, by its Harmonized Tariff Schedule number. And everything can be imported into the United States. There is nothing that cannot be imported into the United States. Can someone throw out a suggestion of something that cannot be imported into the United States?
Heroin.
Heroin may be imported in the United States. Heroin is imported in the United States. You have to have the license to bring heroin into the United States to be a trader in it. And there's not a license to import it, it's a license to be a scientist or a researcher or whatever it is. So there is nothing that cannot be brought in. Just some things you have to have a license, and it's not a license to import it. It's a license to be a handler of it. So that would be, I don't think heroin would be any different than bringing in, say, whiskey or shotguns or something else. You just got to go get the license. Now, of course, that process of getting it, your customs broker, who we'll talk about later, when we talk about costings and all that logistical end of the business, they would assist you in that process. And there is an HTS number for heroin and all that. So anything you want to import can be imported if you can get the permit to do so. Now, of course, the vast majority of what's imported, nobody needs any permits whatsoever. The HTS number, Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States, as opposed to the Harmonized Tariff Schedules of Japan. All members of the World Trade Organization have the same numbering system, the same Arabic numerals to describe items, but the Japanese version would have the article description in Japanese. The French version would be in French. So if you're a member of the World Trade Organization, you have the harmonized tariff schedules of your country, and the numbers are the same for all countries up to the first 6 digits. Okay? The last 4 digits is where individual countries more finely specify what's being talked about. So you find here glazed ceramic flags and paving tiles. Okay, so the whole world agrees that 6908 is paving tiles of this particular kind. 690810, the whole world agrees that they're tile cubes and similar articles, whether or not rectangular, the largest surface area of which capable of being enclosed in a square, the side of which is less than 7 centimeters. You know, why anybody cares about this, who knows, but there you have it. Now, in the United States, they get even more concerned. They want to get it down to having not over 3,229 tiles per square meter, most of which have faces bounded entirely by straight lines. Now, why this matters, I don't know, but that's where they're tracing it by. Then also, if you go down, they'll have a catch-all. If it doesn't fit into these descriptions in particular, it'll go on down to other, the largest which, surface, da-da-da, and then if that doesn't quite describe it, then there's other. So you can have glazed tiles, other, to catch absolutely everything. Okay? Then if a whole bunch of other starts coming in, then in a future edition of this, they'll break it out and give it its own number. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, in this harmonized tariff schedule of the United States, you see there's 2 rates of duty there, the number 1 and number 2 columns. And the number 1 column, as you see in the upper right, is broken down between general and special. Now, the general column is members of the World Trade Organization. The special column is members of the World Trade Organization with whom we have cut a side deal of some sort. So this item is 12% from, say, France, but it will be free from Canada. D is developing countries. E is less developed developing countries. IL is, I think, Israel. J, I think, is the Caribbean. And it's not 12%, but 7.9% from Mexico, and 8.4% from, I think, the Andean countries, if JO refers to that. I think, I don't recall, but it doesn't matter. In the front of this document, you'll find all those currently described. In front of this document. This is only 1 page out of about, I don't know, 2,500 pages of the HTS, Harmonized Tariff Schedules. Now that's column 1. Then column 2, it's 55% duty from countries that are not members of the World Trade Organization. So you'll see, that'd be Vietnam. So this, other countries like that. So that's to rather coerce them into becoming members of the World Trade Organization. Now, you look at this, and the first impulse most people have when they look at that, and they say, oh, look, I can game the system. I'm going to be bringing in pacemakers at 12% from Switzerland, but they're duty-free out of Benin. Well, slow down. Perhaps they may be duty-free out of Benin, but Benin is not the best place to go for pacemakers. Why? Well, they just don't make them there. And it wouldn't do any good to go set up manufacturing there just to get them duty-free. Well, because the expertise out of Switzerland certainly trumps lower duty rates out of Benin. That's often the case.
And you're not concerned about the duty because you're not competing on price.
You're not competing on price. Plus, as we're going to get to in a second, we're going to go where everybody else goes. That's going to really decide for us, assuming, which is a safe bet, that everybody else in the field right now already knows the best place to go. So why would we go elsewhere?
When marimba rhythms start to play, dance with me, make me sway, like the lazy ocean hugs the shore. Hold me close, sway me more.